The content of this podcast is intended to provide general information about Tarion and new home warranty coverage in Ontario. The content is accurate as of the date of the recording, but may later be affected by changes in legislation or policy. The content should not be used as legal advice. You are encouraged to consult with your lawyer if you are seeking legal advice related to buying a new home or about the warranty program. Please visit Tarion.com for the most current information about your new home warranty.
This is SSN
Story Studio Network.
You've decided to buy a new home or condo in Ontario, and you've heard about a warranty that comes with every new home. But do you know all that you need to? How much can you expect to be told by your builder, and what do you need to figure out yourself? Most people are familiar with the name Tarion, but not so familiar with exactly what Tarion does. Welcome to Unpacked, a Tarion podcast about the new home journey in Ontario. By law, all new homes built in Ontario are provided with a warranty by the builder. Tarion's role is to ensure that buyers and owners of new homes receive the coverage they are entitled to under their builder's warranty. I'm Barb DiGiulio, and in this episode, we'll be talking about what they should tell you, what your builder should let you know about your new home warranty when you buy a new home or condo in Ontario. Joining me today are Dave Cecatini, Director of Warranty Services for Tarion, and Ryan Haley, Director of Common Elements. Welcome to you both. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Barb.
Dave, let me start with you, and this is the obvious question based on what we're talking about this episode. What should the builder tell you? What should you remember to ask?
In terms of what you should ask a builder is some of the things that you can expect during the process, like how long it will take for your home to be ready, what closing dates might look like, your payment schedules for deposits throughout the process of the home being built. Also, they can, what happens if there are any delays within the project as well. So there's quite a bit of questions you can ask. What to expect when the home closes, the condition of the home. Will it be 100% complete? Those are the sorts of things that you can ask your builder.
Are these questions, Dave, that builders expect? Is this a normal part of the process?
Any reputable builder, an experienced builder, will have these questions ready to give to homeowners. So these are all things that would already be in conversations between a homeowner and builder. These are the kinds of things that a builder would want to tell homeowners to get them comfortable with the process and to manage their expectations in terms of what to expect.
It feels like there's just sort of a different level of expectation and maybe unknown when people are buying a pre-construction home. Ryan, I'm going to give this one to you. What are some of the unexpected things can happen with a pre-construction home?
Yeah, we know that everyone's excited to get into their new home and get moved in. It's important to understand that the home may not be as built as quickly as expected or as quickly as one would hope. And that might be due to, various factors. It could also, the builder might extend the closing dates. We could talk about what some of those delays could be. The other thing that's sometimes unexpected, the builder might make some design changes to layouts or material selections. So it's important to have a conversation with any changes that you do notice with the builder, and there might be some warranties available for unauthorized substitutions.
Right. So, I'm thinking if the builder is making a substitution with something you've picked out, if they put in something that's maybe of less value than what you have picked out, I imagine that homeowners would want to know what can be done in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some warranty coverage available for situations where a material is changed or a selection that you've made as a purchaser is changed. It's important to raise it with your builder and have those discussions, and we can have the discussion after you move into your home too.
And I think that home buyers should know when it comes to the new home warranty, there are differences between a warranty for a freehold home and a warranty for a condo. Ryan, maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important distinction because there are different timelines that are associated with the common elements of a condo and the unit owned portion as well. So on the unit side, the warranty for an individual unit starts when occupancy takes place, and that might be interim occupancy. Um, the warranty for the actual common elements of the building doesn't start until later on after the condo is registered and titles transferred. And that could be a significant amount of time after the warranty for the individual unit has started associated with the occupancy.
We are going to get into that a little bit more because there are some really unique things about condo ownership. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask Dave, what are some things that could potentially delay the construction, the closing, the occupancy of your home?
A few things could happen. Supply issues, for instance. We did run into situations not too long ago where lumber was an issue, and builders couldn't get lumber quick enough to build a home. So that could be a delay. Trade issues, strikes, that sort of thing. Catastrophic events like weather or fires. We've seen a few of those in the last little while. Where projects experience delays, builders are obligated to inform homeowners of those delays. So there could be a variety of different factors as to why a delay can happen. The pandemic is also a good example of what we've seen lately over the last few years. That really delayed a lot of homeowners in terms of getting their homes and closing. So there's just a lot of things that can happen.
And Ryan, how do builders determine the closing date?
So builders will set either a tentative or a firm closing date, and it's based on how long they expect the construction to take place and how confident they are that they can keep the project to that timeline. A tentative closing or occupancy date can be moved, but a firm closing date is less likely to be changed. However, there are some exceptions to that, and I'd encourage you to refer to the addendum, the statement of critical dates, and that can describe those exceptions. If a builder wants to move a tentative closing or occupancy date, it's also important to note that they need to provide written notice to the purchaser. And it's really important that a purchaser or home buyer understands what kind of closing they have, under what circumstances it can be moved, and what coverage you have for potential delays under the home warranty.
In some really extreme cases, there are situations where a project might not proceed at all. Ryan, what happens if a project gets canceled?
Yeah, there are situations that occur from time to time. Fortunately, it is not that common, but it can happen. And it happens, for different reasons. One of the reasons is that a builder is not able to receive the financing that they needed to make the project viable if they weren't able to sell enough units. Another situation, it could be that the builder wasn't able to obtain appropriate municipal approval, or that they simply, the financing that they had falls through and they go bankrupt. If a project does get canceled, though, there is deposit protection under the warranty, so that's important to remember. One thing that's a little bit different for condos is that the Condo Act requires that deposits are held in trust with lawyers. That's not the case on freehold side, but if there is a situation where you're not getting the money back from your deposit, if there is a canceled project, that's a warranty protection that you have through Tarion, and you can reach out to us for assistance.
Okay. Dave, what is the statement of critical dates that we've heard about?
The statement of critical dates just basically sets out these timelines in terms of when the home will be ready. And it gives the builders an opportunity to give what we call tentative dates that can be moved, and this more importantly gives the purchaser an idea of when they can expect to move into their home or when they can expect to close on their home. So it's a very important document. It keeps everybody on track in terms of when things will move along to a point where the home will close, and it kind of holds the builder to a standard of saying, okay, look, we have these tentative dates. We believe the home is going to be ready at this time. They have limits for how long they can move out those tentative dates, but eventually that firm date sets in, and the builder's really got to make sure that they're supplying that product to the homeowners, so that this way things can move. Homeowners are in the process of getting things ready to move into these homes, and it might involve having to sell another property. It might involve, giving notice to a landlord that they're going to be moving out. So these are all important things, and the statement of critical dates really keeps things on track and gives everybody an end goal of what to expect.
Moving into a home, I mean, it's a very exciting time, can also be a very stressful time. Is there any situation, Ryan, where a home will not be 100% finished when it's time to move in?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And one thing to keep in mind, Barb, is that it's the municipality that actually determines if a home is ready for occupancy, and they're the ones that issue that occupancy permit. Another thing to consider is that fit for occupancy is a requirement of the Ontario Building Code and doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% complete. So there might still be some components of that home or building, in the case of a condo, that are still under construction or requiring some attention. For condos in particular, purchasers on the lower floor might be moving in while construction above is still happening. There's a lot of common elements that might not be finished. We're talking about things like corridors, lobbies, vestibules, rooftop amenities, pool spaces, things like that. It's likely that those elements of the building aren't going to be completed at the time of initial interim occupancy.
Okay. I mean, look, one of the things we've talked about on other episodes is the pre-delivery inspection, and this happens before homeowners get the keys. If I understand it correctly, Dave, let's talk a little bit about the pre-delivery inspection and what homeowners can expect with that.
Yeah, for sure. Pre-delivery inspections are very important, and I always let homeowners know that the purpose of the pre-delivery inspection is to go in and record the condition of the home prior to taking occupancy or those keys transferring over. It's important to go into a home and see what the condition of the home is and document that. Anything that's missing, they should be documenting. Any damages that could have been caused during the course of construction, those things should be documented on a PDI, so that this way there's no question as to who caused the damages. So the PDI is a very good document that captures a moment in time on what the condition of the home is. So we use it when homeowners and builders are in dispute in terms of damages. We do request to see a copy of that pre-delivery inspection report, and the hope is that that item is on there so that we can definitively say who is responsible for the damages and when they were caused.
Ryan, I know your area is really around condos, and I want to talk about interim occupancy fee. Maybe you could tell me exactly what it is and how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about there being different timelines for the warranty when the warranty for your unit starts and when the warranty for the condo starts. So when you're asked to take possession and when your unit's ready for you to move in, you're going to go into typically an interim occupancy stage, and that's a stage that happens prior to the condominium itself being registered with the land registry office. So this is a situation where title hasn't yet been transferred, but you're living in this unit, and the builder's going to ask you to pay an interim occupancy fee on a monthly basis. It's important to know or have an understanding from the builder about how long that period is going to be, and this is something that we hear from owners quite a bit, that they were surprised at the length that they were in interim occupancy. One thing to note is that there's municipal requirements and there's also provincial requirements regarding when a building can be registered, and that defines how long the interim occupancy period is going to be. And it's something that's a little bit beyond the control of Tarion. It's not something that we have a lot of influence on. So, but we do hear a lot of concerns. One thing that's important to understand is what that fee is comprised of. So it's really made up of three different things. So it's the interest on the unpaid balance of the purchase price of the unit. It's the estimated monthly taxes for the unit, and it's also the projected common expense fees, the maintenance fees for the unit as well. So all of those things go together and form this interim occupancy fee.
Would this be applicable in a situation where you are told you can move in, but the building has not been registered, the building is not fully complete? Is that when the interim occupancy fee would come into play?
Yep, that's exactly the stage that occurs.
And just so we're clear, is that in addition to your mortgage payments, or is that instead of mortgage payments?
Yeah, that's in place of or instead of your mortgage payments. You can almost look at it as a bit of a rental contribution. At the time that you're paying these interim occupancy fees, you're not paying your mortgage fees as well.
And do the interim occupancy fees go toward the mortgage, or is it a completely separate thing?
It's a completely separate thing. Yeah, contributions to the interim occupancy fees do not count towards your mortgage payment.
Dave, if I'm moving into a condo or a home before the rest of the project is finished, what can I expect as a homeowner?
Well, if you're moving into a home, a freehold home, outside of a condo, some of the things you can expect are, everybody. It's exciting moving into a home, and you're thinking that you're going to move into white picket fence and grass and driveways and all that kind of thing. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. The reality is that you're going to be moving into a home which, for the most part, we hope is completed on the inside. However, on the outside, we can almost guarantee that you're not going to have things like grading. You're not going to have things like brass. You're not going to have driveways. Streets may not be paved. Curbs may not be put in. So these are kind of, and it usually takes anywhere between 1 to 2 years for all that to get complete. So you're kind of like living in a construction zone. You've got other homes that the builder's building around you as well, depending on what stage they are at with the project. So you're moving into a construction zone more or less. And for a lot of homeowners, they're not expecting that. Like I said, they're expecting white picket fences and everything's all complete, but that's not the reality. The reality is you're moving into a construction zone. The home may not be 100% complete. Outside is definitely usually 99% of the time, I would say, is not 100% complete. And it takes time for all that to be completed. On a condo side, you're hopefully moving into a unit that's complete. But Ryan can describe this. A lot of things on the outside, like a lot of the common element amenities, aren't going to be completed, like corridors, hallways, gyms, and like Ryan had mentioned earlier, those things may not be complete either.
Ryan, did you want to comment on that? Because I think you referred to it a little bit earlier. So if we had a situation where a condo isn't fully complete, but some of the floors are, you mentioned maybe the lower floors, and people are able to move in, but maybe are not expecting that they're going to have to walk through sort of construction areas to get to and from their home.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, and it's something to have a conversation with the builder about their construction plans and the timing of all of this, when they think occupancy is going to be taking place, and how long some of this construction is going to be impacting them. It's common that we see corridors left unfinished until the end. This is really so that during construction, if there are trades in moving materials around, they're not, damaging newly installed wallpaper or drywall or carpeting in these kind of transition locations. The same goes for vestibules. And it's often the case as well that we've talked about that amenity spaces, common areas, it might be a party room. Some of those areas are left until the end to be completed as well. Definitely, we see a lot of rooftop spaces that don't get completed until the end. And another important thing to note about the condo in particular is that at the time of interim occupancy, prior to the registration of the condo, there isn't an elected board yet. So if there's any concerns with issues in the condo, the recourse is for the purchaser to have a conversation directly with the builder as the declarant. They're the ones responsible for the building until that registration and turnover occurs. So we always suggest to have an open conversation with the builder about any concerns that a purchaser is experiencing in the building, as well as a condominium manager. This would be somebody that's hired by the builder to kind of oversee the day-to-day management of the condo. They should be able to help assist with issues as well.
When we were talking a few minutes ago about the interim occupancy fee, you mentioned something about before the title is transferred. So if I'm moving into a condo and paying an interim occupancy fee, am I the legal owner of that condo, or do I have to wait until whatever is completed?
Yeah, that's a good question. You're not the legal owner of the condo until title is transferred through the registration process with the land registry office. So up until that date, the builder is the owner of the condominium, and they're, as a result, responsible for maintenance and all things to do with the condominium.
And just one more question about that, because I find this is probably a really interesting thing that people may not be fully aware of. When it is determined that I can move into the condo, even if the building isn't fully complete, do I have to pay an interim occupancy fee regardless of whether I move in or not?
You do, yes, yeah. Even if you don't physically move in, if if you're living somewhere else and decide that you want to wait until those common elements and those amenity spaces are complete, that doesn't waive the responsibility for you to pay those contributions, those interim occupancy fees, regardless of whether you physically take occupancy.
Is that something, this is all about, what we should know and what the builder should tell us. In your experience, is that something that people are expecting?
I think for the most part, people are moving in. I think the surprise that we see, like I mentioned, is how long that interim occupancy period can last, because it can be anywhere from a few weeks to really 2 years plus, and this all depends on the size of the building. One thing we haven't really talked about yet is super tall buildings, and these are buildings over a certain height, where there's some kind of special requirements with the municipality where you can actually have occupancy while the building is still under construction. So in situations like that, we'd be looking at an extremely long interim occupancy period. And these are important things for a purchaser to know and to have an idea going into a purchase. What are the timelines that they're expected to live there in interim occupancy, so that they can kind of plan their life around that.
It's been a lot of great information from both of you. And I think before we wrap it up, I would like to ask, Dave, maybe based on your experience in dealing with new homeowners, is there any sort of words of wisdom or advice that you would pass along to people who are in this process?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I've seen is I've seen homeowners, walk into contracts and not have those contracts looked at by a lawyer, for instance. I would say that make sure that whatever you sign, whatever agreements you do put in place with a builder, that you have that looked over by a qualified lawyer.
It's a
Who
great
deal,
point.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, who deal with real estate transactions. So that's the one most important thing I can recommend to any purchaser buying a home.
And Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's really important to just be as educated as possible on some of these processes and understand what your rights are. And we always say that the most success in these kind of transactions come when there's expectations that have been really clearly laid out. So it's there's a part of that's on the builder to help manage those expectations as well. But there's a responsibility on a purchaser too to review this and understand some of the timelines associated with this and the different processes. So we always find the best success when everyone's communicating and understands these processes.
Dave, can we say that people should not be afraid to ask a lot of questions of the builder while they're going through this?
They should not be afraid to ask questions. They should ask as many questions as possible. Purchasers should do their due diligence in researching who they're buying from as well. That's the other thing that that we've seen throughout my career here. I've seen homeowners research, a television to make sure that they're getting the proper, TV, and it's got all the bells and whistles, and they're only spending a fraction of a cost of buying a home, and they don't do any research on who their builder is and what it is that they're supplying. So it's the more information you have, the better you are to make a decision on whether you're making the right investment, basically. And we have a lot of information on our website. Tarion's website is full of info that you could use. We have YouTube videos on various different warranties and coverages and all those sorts of things. So the more information you have, the better it is.
Yes, equipping new homeowners with the sort of information and the education as they go through the process. Dave Cecatini, Ryan Haley, thank you so much for this. It's been very interesting and informative. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more information on how Tarion can help you navigate and receive the coverage you are entitled to, go to tarion.com/learning hub. You've been listening to Unpacked, a Tarion podcast about the new home journey in Ontario.
This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.